Cool. Hi Andy, thank you so much for helping my project.
Of
Can you
course.
say a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Andy Runton. I am a cartoonist. I make children's books and graphic novels for a living, and I'm uh, well known for my Owly series of graphic novels.
How did you get started with that?
I've always wanted to draw, but I didn't know you could do, cartoons or, I didn't know you could do that for a living. I really didn't. It's one of those things, I think when you're growing up, you see all these things, you don't realize that people actually make them, right? And so um, I didn't think I could do that. I didn't go to art school. I wasn't bold enough for that. I went to design school. I went to Georgia Tech. That's where I went. But back of my mind, I always wanted to do this. And so I was working for Motorola actually at the time, and it was right after 9/11, and everything was kind of going bad with the .com stuff and everything like that. And Motorola ended up shutting down our entire division. They just shut everything down, and
Hmm.
all the stuff we were working on, they just trashed it. And we were working on basically it was like a this was in 2001, and it was a lot like the iPhone. It wasn't the iPhone, but it could have been something similar to that. So that would have been years earlier. Um, but they didn't believe in it. And what happened was I just got so disillusioned with that kind of stuff that I said, I'm going to try to do what I always wanted to do. And I started, I don't know exactly how I got into it. It was so quick. I just started creating stuff. I started sending stuff around, and before you knew it, I was drawing these comic pages, and I showed them to some people, and they really liked them, and they encouraged me to do more, and I did more, and I made little comics, and I sold them at conventions, and before you knew it, I was published, and then it just kind of kept going. So it's not a direct path by any means.
And so that's really neat. I mean, so you kind of had a vision, a dream, and then you
Yep.
had kind of like a point where you had to make a decision, do what you try to continue doing what you were doing someplace else, and then or maybe pivot to this other thing.
Yeah, it was really tough too because I had a coworker who also loved comics, but I told him I was going to try to do this for a living, and he just said I was crazy, and he was incredibly supportive in every other way, but he also said I was crazy doing this. And to be honest, it is not an easy living. It is a lot of hard work, and the pay is very low, but I wouldn't trade it. I don't see myself. I don't think I could ever go back to that other stuff. It's just too hard. But yeah, I see the analogy, and it's very similar. There's a lot of people that may be telling you, no, you can't do this, but you have to just believe. You have to believe that it's possible.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, but I kind of made a similar type of change earlier this year. I
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for 25 years I was working for like Compaq, HP software company and that type of thing. Um,
Gotcha.
this year I started working at NASA, training to be a flight controller. So um,
Wow,
it's
that
kind
is
of
really cool. I had no idea. That's so awesome.
I know, I know, and it pays considerably different than or less than my other thing, but I wouldn't
Yeah,
trade it for anything either.
that's the thing. It's that it's actually kind of odd. And you know this being a understanding software in the computer world, it's like that the salaries there are skewed in a way that is difficult to explain to somebody doing my job now, right? Like if I told somebody, like my beginning salary right out of school was $60,000. This was, 90, 98. They'd go, that I'm never going to make that doing this. And the answer is that's true. You might make it one year, but you'll never see it again. But the thing is that was the basics. And it was like, I'm in a position now where like school doesn't matter, your GPA doesn't matter. none of that stuff matters. All those things that everybody um, really cared about and everything. It's all about how much you believe it, how hard you'll work, and um, and how much and what you can do and how good you can do it. And it's not really a meritocracy, but it's still it's very hard to hide in this industry because you can't like be somebody who doesn't do anything and just kind of skates through, which is like, 75% of the people that I worked with before, they just kind of showed up to work and clocked in and clocked out. That's not the way this life works for me anymore. It's all the time, but this is who I am. It fits me much better than the other one. So how about you? How was your your second career in that going?
It's going well. There's about 2 years of training involved at the front part of it,
Oh, wow.
so
Gotcha.
just kind of a quarter of the way through that. And in fact, but right before this, I was studying for an exam I have to take tomorrow. So we're complete with
Oh, wow.
classes and everything.
Wow,
And
that's really cool. No,
it's
that's really cool.
there's a process to learning. So I think that a lot of my peers who are directly out of college, it's just like another semester for them. But for me, I
Yeah,
got to
they're
do
like they're like, I remember this. No, yeah, no, I understand. There was something I had to learn. I forget what it was, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot how to do this. But it's just you have to it's just a different mindset. It's a different mindset. And so hopefully you can find a way to learn it easier by doing it and different things like that, because reading it out of a book is just doesn't work anymore. You know what I mean? When your mind is wired differently, I think, as you get older. So
absolutely, yeah. Well, can you talk a little bit about like uh, what are some of the topics and themes and characters that you like to do in your cartoons?
so for me, the thing that I kind of always focus on is it's very different than regular comic books. If somebody says comic books, the first thing you think of is superheroes and fighting and things like that. And my stuff is the absolute opposite of that. It's almost like Winnie the Pooh. It's very similar to that. So it's a combination of all the stuff I love, but um very wholesome and very, it's good for all ages. It's the kind of stuff like I mean, even Bugs Bunny is kind of violent, but that's the kind of stuff that I love growing up. That was for everybody. It wasn't just for kids. It wasn't super directed at one demographic. It was the universal, and that's what I kind of go for. And so I make sure all the stories are all about like friendship and understanding, and there's no violence, and there's always a happy ending because I can control all that, and I like to control all that. So it's kind of cool that way. And that's the neat thing about it, is that I'm the final say. I'm not just a cog in a big machine. I mean, I am still a small cog in a big machine of publishing, but in terms of what I create, I get the final say, and that is it's a lot of responsibility, but it's also a good kind of responsibility. So, but yeah, that's what I kind of focus on, friendship, adventure, teamwork, all the kind of stuff that I always thought was the important stuff in life. So
It sounds like the anti-Dilbert.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no corporations, there's nothing like that. I actually don't even have any humans in this world. I mean, they are there theoretically, they're out of sight, but they're not in my comics. This is kind of, it's almost like a little imaginary world that exists like in your backyard when you're not looking. It's kind of like Toy Story, but with animals, right? I mean, they have their own little world that's going on, and I'm a big bird watcher, and so a lot of it is born out of that. It is by watching the birds and the animals and just imagining what their lives are like when you're not watching them, and so it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, did you ever watch the movie Look Who's Talking?
Yes, yes,
I can't see anything, animal, plant, tree, or what have you, without having like some type of conversation, imaginary
exactly.
thoughts.
Exactly. I mean, it's just, I mean, I have pets. I mean, I'm always thinking about what they're thinking about and how they're responding to it, and I give them voices and stuff like that. I think a lot of us do that, and I think that that is, it's a very human thing to do, to kind of project ourselves onto them. But who's to say that they, you know, we have no idea. We have no idea what's going on in their heads, and especially all of the studies they've done with dogs and how much they learn and how much they remember and everything like that. It's pretty incredible the stuff that we don't know. So
It is. Yeah, I know. What would our sound like to a more intelligent person? Maybe we're just grunting still.
exactly, we are, yeah, we are not the evolved. Uh, I don't know. You know, that's the thing. I mean, that's I'm reading something about plants having a certain kind of language that they actually speak to each other. They're just finding things like that out and stuff. So it's who knows? Maybe we're not the most evolved creatures on the planet, you know, so hard to say.
It is. Well, since you said that, um, we might want to talk about other places besides this planet. Um,
Sure, sure.
I I was wondering if you had knew that NASA is planning to send astronauts back to the moon.
Well, I had heard little bits of it, and I was kind of like, is that really going to happen? Because you know, I don't know, some of that stuff. You know, I mean, I was born in '74, so I didn't see the moon landing. My brother did. He was old enough to see it, and you know, one of the defining um, events for me. I mean, when I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. That's where I was, and you could actually see the shuttle take off from our house. It was a long way away, but there was no, I mean, we're talking about a long way. I forget how many miles it is, but you could see it. It lit up the whole sky, you know? And we would go out and watch it just about every time. And it was really cool. And so the Challenger explosion was huge because I watched that in class. And
Hmm.
it was like that was my JFK, you know, that was the thing that was like the uniting element for a lot of people, I think, in the 80s. But there was always something really special about the shuttle and NASA in general to me. It was just, it was the, you know, I'd always loved science fiction. I'd always loved that stuff, but this was real. And it was, I don't know, it was sacred. It really was. I think that I grew up with NASA being a really important part of you know, American identity, really, you know. So I think it was huge. So um, seeing the decline of everything over the years, you know, after the Challenger and after, you know, the subsequent shuttle uh, problems and disasters and everything, it's just been heartbreaking. And so there's been a lot of wins, but the losses have been really hard. And so I think hearing that they're going to try to go to the moon again, I think would be great. I think that I don't know. It's so weird now because everything we do is I think what happened was is that the internet kind of took over, right? So like the internet became like the thing. Space kind of started to fall away when all of a sudden we were all connected, and it was I don't know. It's very we started to look inward instead of outward. I'm not really sure exactly what it was, but you know, when I grew up in a time when like, you know, Jacques Cousteau and, you know, explorers were the thing. That was the cool thing, you know, that was what it was all about, places we'd never been before. And just seeing how small we are, but also how amazing the world and the universe is, you know. I mean, so I'm fascinated by it. I hope that it can kind of rekindle excitement with space again. But I don't know. It's become a thing that everybody knows about, and yet nobody really cares about now. It's very odd to me, you know, because that's not how I feel. But um, yeah. So,
But you talked about identity. So back in 1986, you know, whenever Challenger happened, and
Yeah.
all through the 80s and 90s, and even the early parts of the 2000s. NASA was the space program of the United States.
Right.
And now
Right.
you're starting to see kind of like a broadening of capabilities and
Right.
a lot of commercial interest.
Right.
Um, in your mind, how does that affect NASA's place in your world?
Mhm. You know, it's funny. I still don't think of that stuff as exciting as official NASA stuff. It's almost like I don't know, like little side projects and things. Like, I mean, because the one thing that about the last thing that was so amazing with NASA for me, I mean, growing up, was the Mars landing, the first Mars landing with the rover and everything like that. And I had like a little micro machine of the little rover. I still have them around here somewhere. But like that was my favorite part of The Martian, that movie with Matt Damon, was when he finds the original rover and then he actually uses it to help him. That was like one of the best parts. It was almost like seeing an old friend, which is, that's what's so cool about it. But for me, it's about the personality that we kind of give things. But there's something, I know a lot of people worked on those other projects, but I don't know about them. I mean, we've seen so much inside of NASA, and it's been, especially growing up in the 80s, you understood all that behind the scenes stuff and mission control and all of that. It was a huge part of it. You could tell that it was a big group effort, and with these subsequent uh space things, it's like it's all about the guy who wanted to do it. It's all about Richard Branson or Elon Musk or whatever. And that NASA was never about one person. It was all about the organization. And I think there's something really special about that when you look back at it and realize how much of it was about all of us working together to do something more, you know? And I'd love to see. I think the thing that, when I see those corporations and, I mean, companies going to space, I think it's great, but it also shows how underfunded NASA is now, right? Or I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the numbers, I don't know, but it's almost like um, I don't know. It's great to see them back, because honestly, I think in a lot of people's minds, it's gotten to be a very small piece of America and the space program, really, right? I mean, NASA in their minds, and I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. So I'm glad that they're going to try to do more.
When you look at the future of humanity, what does it look like to you?
Like how many years out?
How about 200?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, it's so funny to think back to the 80s, and we thought, Back to the Future and all those, where we thought in 20 years we'll have flying cars, hoverboards, and all that kind of stuff. And we've really kind of slowed down with a lot of that. It's just hasn't really progressed. We haven't hit that. I don't know. Let's see, 200 years. Well, I'd like to think that the Earth is still around. I'd like to think that we haven't destroyed it completely. Uh, I think that was somebody mentioned that, all these millionaires and everything, they don't care about the Earth. They want to go somewhere else. Like Elon Musk was like, we got to get to Mars or whatever. It's like, and somebody commented, hey, there is a there are, for every person that's in space, there are thousands of people on the ground that are making that happen, right? Like, it's not something that you can just get in a spaceship and just go, like science fiction. There's all this ground support that needs to happen. And so the point is that we need to make this planet work for us, and I think that I think that I think that in 200 years we will be on the moon, definitely have colonies on the moon, maybe more in orbit, things like that. And I'd like to think that we've come to kind of like a more of a symbiotic relationship with the planet so that we can coexist together. You know, I think all of that's important for all of us to survive. And if you know, people getting excited about the moon gets us to that'd be great. That'd be great. But I think that I could see that happening. Either we're all gone or we're on the moon. That'll be those are my two options, you know, in 200 years. So
Yeah, it's. Do you think we'll be past the moon?
I think so. I think that, you know, I mean, the biggest issue is the technology, really, right? The technology to the weight versus, propulsion and all of those things that go into why it takes us so long to get places. I could definitely see um, that Mars is in the picture. I can definitely see Mars. You know, I don't know beyond that. I mean, I would love to see it. I don't see how that we can, because the thing is that I don't want anybody to go someplace as a one-way mission. You know what I mean? I never want that. I want them to be able to come back if they want to. And so I don't think we should go until they can come back. But maybe that's maybe that's not a possibility. I don't know. But so in my mind, if we can, I'd like to get to Mars, at least to started. To have people land on Mars would be amazing. Because you know, again, the thing is that I grew up with the face on Mars and all of those things that are like, what is the possible? What's out there? What really is there? What we don't really know. I mean, we've got things there, but until you see somebody actually there, it's going to be hard to tell. So I don't know. It's hard. It's something I've realized because like you know, we do a lot of stuff video, you know, virtually now. And there's something very different about seeing something on video and then actually touching it. And I think it would be really cool for somebody to actually be there. And same with the moon. I mean, we didn't really have the interactivity that we have now with the things around us. I think that the moon would be amazing, an amazing thing where we could actually have people that are there all the time. And yeah, I think it'd be really cool.
If you could take a trip to space, would you?
Hmm. Right now with the current technology, I, you know, the thing is that I have dreamt of it, but I have an issue with heights. It is one of those things that to me, you know, the nightmares I used to have of basically being in a plane that was clear on the bottom, where you can't see anything underneath you, you know, and this feeling that there's nowhere to fall, right? Like, I don't know if you've ever been in a place that has a transparent floor, like there's a place in Toronto that has a transparent floor. It's this big tower, and it is super scary to walk over this, even though it's glass and you know that it's not going to break. My body just wouldn't walk on top of it. I was trying to get my body to walk on this floor and look straight down, and my body said, nope, we're not going to walk there. And when I see people orbiting the Earth and just that much space between you and the ground, it's just freaks me out. I think that that's something that I could probably get used to, because I would love to be able to see that. I would love to be able to see the Earth from above. I think that would be absolutely amazing. Um, but I don't know if my mind could handle it, but I would love to do that. I would love to do it.
Do you fly in airplanes?
Yes, yes, yes. I used to be really scared, you know, but I actually end up going to a lot of comic book conventions. Well, I used to, I haven't in a while. Um, but I ended up flying almost, twice a month, maybe three times a month. And I got used to it. And it was so funny. I remember the first time I flew, and there was this guy just reading the paper, just casually reading the paper. And I was just like, you know, death grip on the armrests. And I was like, how can that guy be so calm? how is it pot? And now that's me, right? I'm just like, whatever, what's going on? I'm eating, drinking, all that kind of stuff. And so I think it's just something you have to get used to. But yeah, I love looking out planes. I love traveling by plane. It's magical to me.
Have you ever gone to a comic convention in Houston called Comic Palooza?
I have not. I've never actually never been to Houston. I've only been to Austin once. It was one of those things where I wanted to do more stuff in. Oh wait. I went to Dallas for another small convention right before COVID hit, and so. But I have not been to Houston. I would love to.
Yeah,
Planet Houston. You got to get there.
absolutely. Okay, so I'd like to take that 200-year question and turn around the other direction. Imagine you're in imagine a high schooler
Right.
200 years from now doing a project on the 2020s for history class.
Oh yeah. Wow.
What do you hope? What do you hope is worth writing about and remembering 200 years from now?
Wow. That's a good one. Well, I would love to have somebody, you know, I don't know. I actually lost a lot of faith in humanity with COVID and the response to science and everything like that. It's been kind of hard to see that because it shows how far we've fallen. But I would like for somebody to just say, look, like they went through this horrible time and everybody was getting sick. And then after that, they decided to that our differences were small enough and we needed to try to have some kind of loftier goal that we could all reach for together. I think that is the thing that was so wonderful about the space race, even though, there's lots of bad parts of it, but the wonderful thing about it was that we're all cheering for something, and all together, America, all together. I mean, the whole country, and not only the whole country, but the whole world, just trying to get people up there like human beings up to this place. And I think there's something that you can't really put a number or anything on that. It's so special. And so I would love to think that this was the rebirth of humanity and our desire to it's not about conquering space. It's not about, you know, it's not about resources. It's not about all those things. I mean, all those things are important, but to me, it's about that sense of wonder and just seeing, our place in the universe um, and not giving into the people that think the earth is flat and all those other things that are still out there somehow. And it just doesn't, I don't get that. I mean, because when I think back to the 80s, I mean, planetariums were big, right? That was one of the biggest things for me was going to the planetarium and seeing these laser shows and these basically just movies of 360 degrees of just space. And it was magical to me. It was just absolutely magical. And I think that is gone from the world. And I think we need that. We need that sense of wonder. We need that sense of magic. We need that sense of like the unknown. Like we don't know what's out there, and we're going to find out. And but in a good way, not in a, like we've destroyed the moon or something like that. But in a really, yeah, I really would like to see somebody look back and think of the 2020s as, it started off really bad, and then we took some of the things that were happening and we kind of realized that we need to make changes. And then as a side effect of that, we started embracing science again and the desire to push the envelope to learn more and to grow as a species. I think that's what I'd like to see. I don't know if that'll happen, but I would love to see that.
What's keeping us from getting there?
Oh, I don't know if I could have predicted the anti-science bent of the world. That is one of those things that I still have a difficult time with that. Um, this idea that there's not a single truth, that there's not a that facts don't matter, those kinds of things. I just don't. There's certain things I mean, even things like you know, like this is hard because I grew up loving conspiracies such as Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. Like those are the kinds of things that, again, we don't know. We still don't know about some of those things. There's no real way to know until somebody kills a Bigfoot or finds the Loch Ness Monster dead or something like that. I mean, those are those kind of wondrous things they just kind of increase your sense of like, well, we can hardly even grasp the world, right? It's like there's people with telekinetic powers and all these kinds of stuff, but it was never, was the moon landing faked and stuff like that. This stuff existed in a good way with science, right? It was like there's science, but then there's stuff outside of science, and it's okay to think about that stuff because eventually that stuff becomes science, and that's okay. But I think this idea, I almost wonder if it's just a humbling of us to realize that we don't know everything. We don't know everything, and we need to find out everything, and we need to trust people that have spent their entire lives working at these things, and they're not trying to fool you. They're just trying to do what they do and help humanity. It seems so far away now sometimes, especially with just the response to the vaccines and everything. It's just really gotten me down.
I know, especially vaccines. It's not like vaccines is a new thing.
Yeah.
I've pretty much, I would say everybody in the world's gotten a vaccine of one thing or another.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that is this idea. And again, like I believe in UFOs. I believe in that kind of stuff, because how do we know? We have no idea. Look how huge the universe is. But I think that it coexists with science, and so when I'll be watching some UFO thing and they'll start talking about how, it was so upsetting to me. It was, because you see all this stuff on YouTube, which is just crazy. But it was this UFO thing, and they were just talking about aliens. And I draw a lot, right? I spend a lot of time drawing. And so when I'm drawing, I just listen to things. I podcasts and all kind of stuff, but I'll listen to YouTube videos and then it'll just start playing something else. And I got into some guy that was talking about aliens, and he was like, and when they come down, they'll be able to fix any mistakes you made. Like if you got the vaccine and you really regret it, I was like, what are you talking about? It was just, I just instantly shut it off. It was just one of those things where, I don't know, that is ridiculous. That is just so ridiculous. And I know that here I am called, like, you mean you thought he was totally sane until he started about the vaccines? It was like, well, I still think that those things can exist. I don't want to think that, you know, I don't believe that the moon is hollow. I don't believe, there's a lot. I'm familiar with all of those things because they're not that much different than science fiction to me. You know what I mean? I don't think they're real. It's fascinating to think about what people come up with and stuff, but I understand the difference between the scientific method and somebody that just has an idea that exists in a fantasy novel, and but I don't know what it would take. It's something so deep. The the understanding of science, it's something so deep that I never thought it would be questioned, and not in this era. You know, I don't know. It's difficult for me because growing up, I always thought of, and this is the way it's taught, and I understand it doesn't really work this way, but I always thought of history as a progression from, you know, knowing nothing to the more you know. I mean, you can see it with art, especially because I look at a lot of history through the eyes of the art that came out of it, and you know, people that were trying to capture realism and then eventually being able to capture it and then kind of rebelling against the realism and then embracing it and then something new. But it's a progression, and I thought that science was the same way, and I think it is, but I don't know what we have turned into these last couple of years. It's been rather disturbing. So
Yeah.
it's hard. I'm still optimistic. I'm still optimistic because I want um I don't know. I mean, when I see like I've watched I haven't watched the latest season, but the For All Mankind, have you watched that on
I
it,
have.
it's just to have a world that it's dominated by these achievements that we've made, and they have impacted the lives of everybody. And I feel like that was the case with NASA for a long time, that our lives were directly impacted by our exploration of things. Maybe that's not true, but that's how it felt. It was, things like, oh, what is this? Oh, it's Velcro. Oh yeah, they use this on the space shuttle. Oh my gosh, it's this neat. It's all these little inventions that people had to come up with to solve problems, and I think it's just cool. It was just really cool to live in that world where um, behind the scenes, you knew people were working to make the world a better place. And I think that that's the thing that's cool about some of these alternate realities where that's still happening. And yeah, yeah, I'm still optimistic that we can get back there. I don't know what needs to happen, but it's still the right way to go. We kind of need to be there. So,
Well, I really appreciate your time. Those were the questions I had. I know we
okay.
talked about a lot of things. Is there anything else you want to talk about, or did you have any questions for me?
Um, no, I guess the only thing that I wanted to mention was that, you know, when um when the Challenger explosion happened, it was devastating to me. It was just kind of, and it was this loss of innocence, I think, that I don't know if we've recovered from. And I think that when the subsequent stuff I saw about it, and the compromises that were made and everything like that, it's very disillusioning. And I think that, I don't know, it's kind of like with some of the Apollo problems. It was like, problems happened, and we accepted it, and we took responsibility for it, and we just wanted to, but we kept going. And I feel like after Challenger, everything kind of like was like half-hearted after that. And especially I remember, with the subsequent um, shuttle issues and everything, it was barely in the news, and it was heartbreaking to me because if you still followed it, I mean, I still will track the International Space Station, and there's an app on your phone, you can see it go over. It's the coolest thing. It is the coolest thing, and I'll be out there looking up, and people are like, "What are you looking at?" And I'll tell them what it is, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool!" And they see it, and it's like, "Oh, that's so neat." And I don't think people do that enough. And I think that's what's so, I don't know how we lost that, but we did. And I really think it does correlate with the rise of the internet, but I don't exactly know why. Because
Hmm.
you would think if we had access to all of this knowledge in the world that we would use it to grow, and it hasn't turned out that way. So yeah, it's fascinating to me. I'm I'm always heartened when I, meet somebody like you who is actually wants to do this and is excited about it and everything. I mean, that is so cool. Because that was me as a kid. Space Camp the movie, that was like
Hmm.
the movie. That was the thing. Like Space Camp, this idea that you could one day go to space camp, that was so cool. And like now, that seems, I don't know if that would be up there on the list of things for kids that they would just die to do. Like, and that, I don't know why that is. And we got to figure it out. And we need, because it's important. It's important. There's definitely a correlation between the space program and America's, I don't know, I mean, soul, personality, whatever, they're linked. They're linked. And maybe it's about exploration, maybe it's about unknown, you know, whatever drew people to America in the first place, and also all of us working together, you know, melting pot of people. And I think that's what's so cool to see in some of the alternate realities and things, is to see that we've embraced that. And I'd love to I'd love to see that. So I'm hopeful.
Me too. Well, thank you so much, Andy. I keep drawing, and thank you for participating in my project. And I hope that high schooler 200 years from now can make use of all these videos to really make an awesome paper.
That would be, you know, that would be funny. What will they be watching it on? They're not, no more smartphones. It'll be, you know, implants in their eyes or whatever, but it'll be great.
It will be. Okay, well, you have a good night. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much, and good luck with everything. That's I'll be rooting for you, and good luck on your test and everything. That's so cool. I'm so excited for you, man. That's really great.
Thank you.
And I'm proud of you for making that jump. It's hard. It is hard to leave something behind like that you know, and you're doing something and everybody says you're doing what, you know? And it's so I'm proud of you. So good luck.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Nathan. All right,
Thank you.
take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.